My family missed the biggest moment of my life. Not a birthday, not a promotion, my wedding. 4 empty chairs in the front row, reserved for them, stared back at me harder than any guest ever could. I kept checking my phone, waiting for one message, one excuse, something. Nothing came. Only silence. Then a week later, when the news announced that my hotel chain had reached a $100 million valuation, my phone finally lit up. Dad. Family dinner at 7 p.m., important discussion. And that was the moment I understood. They didn't want to celebrate with me, they wanted something from me. So I arrived with the one thing they never expected. My name is Rose, and for most of my life, I believed loyalty could make a family feel like home. I tried so hard to hold on to that hope, even when every sign said otherwise. Growing up, our house in Madison looked ordinary enough from the street. A sagging porch swing, a cracked driveway, and the faint smell of my mother's lavender cleaner drifting through the windows. But inside, everything revolved around my father's idea of legacy. Gregory ran a chain of aging motels he treated like royal estates. He spoke of them the way some men speak of their children. I once thought that was love. Later I learned it was ownership. He loved control, not people, and he taught everyone else to orbit him. My mother, Helena, was the emotional enforcer. She never raised her voice, she raised guilt. If Dad wanted something, she softened the blow with tears. "Your father is stressed," she'd say. "Don't worry him, be grateful." Eventually, you stop asking why gratitude is always measured in silence. Marcus, my older brother, mirrored Dad's swagger. He believed value only existed in brick and land. "Hotels are risky," he told me the year I opened my first property. "It's all trend and fluff. Real assets don't need branding." He said it while standing outside one of Dad's motels, where the flickering vacancy sign buzzed like a dying fly. And then there was Dylan, my younger brother, who floated through life like the world owed him a soft landing. He called himself an influencer, though he couldn't influence himself to hold a job longer than a week. Still, he always had opinions about how I should handle success. Conveniently, those opinions involved me rescuing whatever financial disaster the family had created. Maybe that's why, as my career grew, I learned to dress down around them. Neutral sweaters, simple pants, no jewelry except the small band my husband gave me back when we were dating. I didn't want to trigger the endless remarks, "Don't get arrogant," or the requests, "Could you cover this month's bills?" Looking back, I realized I was shrinking myself so their egos didn't feel threatened. What they never knew was how hard those early years were. The nights I slept in my car because rent was a luxury. How I taught myself every inch of the hospitality industry, from unclogging bathroom drains to negotiating contractor bids. The fear of losing everything before it ever became something. Dad dismissed all of it. "Your business is unstable," he said. "Too modern, too digital. Real business requires land." But the moment that truly changed me was my wedding. I begged them for one day, just one, to show up not as critics, not as people who wanted something, but as family. When they never walked through those doors, something inside me went quiet. Not broken, just done. Still, a part of me held on to the hope of softness, a chance to be proven wrong, a chance to believe they cared. So when Dad texted me after the valuation made headlines, I stared at his message longer than I should have. Family dinner, important discussion. Maybe, just maybe, they wanted to make things right. But the moment I stepped into that country club, I knew exactly why they suddenly remembered I existed. The morning the valuation hit the news, I was in my office overlooking downtown Madison, reviewing renovation plans for our next location. Sunlight spilled across the conference table, glinting off a silver frame holding my wedding photo. The one where my husband's hand rests gently over mine, trying to anchor me, while 4 seats behind us sat painfully empty. Ava burst into my office without knocking, breathless in a way she rarely allowed. "Rose," she said, holding up her tablet, "you need to see this." There it was, headlines stretched across every major business outlet. Independent hotel chain surpasses $100 million valuation. The number didn't surprise me. I had seen it in our projections, tracked it month after month. But watching the world react to it, that made my breath catch. My staff drifted into my office, clapping, congratulating, hugging. Ava brought out a bottle of sparkling cider she'd been saving for months. For the day you finally believe you did this. I laughed, but it felt strange. Pride and grief can live in the same chest without ever touching, like two neighbors who refuse to speak. I should have called my parents. Or maybe they should have called me years ago, when I begged them to see me, not my usefulness. My phone buzzed nonstop. Investors, partners, old classmates, even a former boss who once told me I was too polite to lead. But not my family, not one word. It shouldn't have mattered, but a part of me still waited for that message that never came. Someone saying, "I'm proud of you," without attaching a condition. By late afternoon, the office quieted, the celebration faded. Ava left me with a gentle smile and a stack of updated reports. I remained, watching the city shift from gold to blue as lights flickered across the skyline. Then it happened. My phone buzzed. Dad's name. For a moment, everything in me went still. No apology, no acknowledgement, just the message. Family dinner at 7 p.m. Important discussion. Not an invitation, an order. I read it again, searching for warmth, a forgotten memory of my wedding, anything human. But the words sat on the screen like a command. Ava was packing up when she noticed my expression. "Let me guess," she murmured. They resurfaced. I handed her the phone. She exhaled slowly. They want something. People don't schedule important discussions out of love. I already knew she was right. I just didn't know how right. Not yet. But when I typed back, "I'll be there," a calm I didn't recognize settled inside me. Because for the first time, I wasn't stepping into their world unarmed. I pulled into my driveway that evening with Dad's text still echoing in my mind. Family dinner at 7 p.m. Important discussion. It read like a memo to an employee, not a message to a daughter. No congratulations, no mention of the wedding they skipped or the milestone I reached, just a directive. Inside my garage, the silence felt heavier than usual. My headlights swept across storage shelves lined with old binders, spreadsheet printouts from midnight shifts, handwritten notes from contractors who barely took me seriously. Proof of how fiercely I'd fought to build something no one believed in. I opened one binder marked early loans. I skimmed through the numbers, tight margins, sleepless nights, risks that could have ruined me. If I could survive that, I could survive one family dinner. Still, something tugged at me. Why now? Why urgency? Ava called just as I closed the garage door. Her voice was calm, but tension threaded through it. "I looked into something you said about your dad's motels." My stomach tightened. "What about them?" "They're in trouble, Rose. Serious trouble. Overdue payments, unpaid contractors, months of negative cash flow, and more. One lender is preparing to liquidate." Of course. Of course. The timing was no accident. "They don't want to talk," Ava continued. "They want a bailout." Anger surged through me. Not fiery, but cold and sharp. The kind that makes breathing slower, not faster. The kind that decides. "What are you thinking?" Ava asked. "I'm thinking," I said quietly, "we should get ahead of this." She understood immediately. "You want the debt?" "I want the leverage," I corrected. By morning, Ava had mapped every loan tied to the motels. Some were small, others catastrophically mishandled. But one thing became obvious. Gregory's empire wasn't crumbling. It was already dust. He just needed someone else to sweep it up. And that someone else was supposed to be me. We spent hours reviewing payments, contracts, unpaid bills, everything that revealed a sinking ship held afloat by denial. Ava contacted the lender. Desperate to unload a failing account, they were eager to negotiate. By late afternoon, the acquisition. You're just ending the cycle. As I walked out the door, I realized she was right. This wasn't revenge. This was an exit. And the moment they asked me for help, I would finally show them who they were asking. I arrived with the one thing they never expected: clarity. Not anger, not desperation, not the version of me who once fought for a place at their table, just truth and the documents that proved it. The Country Club parking lot was half full when I pulled in. Warm yellow light spilled from tall windows, washing the manicured hedges in a soft glow. I sat in my SUV for a moment, inhaling the leather interior and the faint citrus of the air freshener, letting calm settle over me. I wasn't here to fight. I wasn't here to beg. I was here to end this. Inside, a hostess greeted me with a bright smile that faded when she heard my parents' names. "They're already seated," she whispered, as if delivering a warning. "Back room." Of course, Dad always wanted privacy when he planned to corner someone. The moment I stepped into the private dining room, 4 pairs of eyes snapped to me. Dad leaned back like he owned the building. Mom offered a quivering smile meant to appear warm. Marcus smirked as if I arrived late to a meeting he controlled. Dylan raised a glass of iced tea in a lazy salute. Victor, my uncle who only surfaced when money did, sat beside Dad, hands folded like a consultant ready to pitch. Dad didn't bother with a greeting. He pointed to the empty chair. "Sit. We need to talk." I didn't move. "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what I thought." Mom clutched her pearls. "Rose, don't use that tone. This is a family dinner." I walked forward, placed my bag beside my chair, and sat. Calm, composed, their expectations thickening the air like humidity. Dad cleared his throat. "We're in a situation," he began. "The motels have hit a rough patch. Nothing we can't fix with the right capital." There it was, the reason they called, the reason they cared. Marcus leaned in. "We know your company is booming, overvalued maybe, but still strong. You could stabilize things." "For the legacy," Dad added. Mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin. "We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate, honey. We were humiliated hearing about the valuation from strangers. Why didn't you tell us?" I let the silence answer. Why didn't I tell them? Because they hadn't spoken to me since the wedding. Dylan leaned forward. "Don't be sensitive about the past, or here now. Let's fix this together." I opened my bag. 4 sets of eyes followed like wolves watching me. They expected a check, a bailout, a lifeline. Instead, I slid the folder Ava prepared to the center of the table. Dad frowned. "What's this?" "A reality check and a reminder." He opened it and color drained from his face. Marcus leaned closer. Dylan froze. Mom's breath stuttered. "What is this supposed to mean?" Dad demanded. "You wanted a bailout, but the debt, the one drowning your motels, it's not the banks anymore." Marcus flipped pages, eyes widening. Victor whispered, swallowed. "You bought the debt." I nodded. "Through a holding subsidiary. Legally, cleanly, quietly. As of this afternoon, every loan tied to the motels belongs to me." Dad slammed the folder shut. "You think this is funny? What gives you the right?" "The lenders. They practically begged me to take on a failing asset." Mom gasped, hand to her mouth. "Rose, how could you—" "How could I what?" I said softly. "Ensure your sinking ship doesn't drag me under?" Dad pushed half out of his chair, fingers stabbing in the air. "If you walk out of here without helping us, you're no daughter of mine." Silence swallowed the room. Even the waiter paused outside the door. I stood too, slow, steady. Years of ignored pain, minimized success, and cheap guilt lined up behind me like quiet witnesses. I didn't walk away. You did. You skipped my wedding. You ignored my life. You show up only when you need something. Dad's jaw tightened. We're your family, and I'm not your rescue plan. I placed a thin envelope on the table. One check. This is a buyout. 200,000. Enough for you to walk away clean. 30 days to vacate. After that, I restructure. Marcus snatched the check. You're keeping us out of our own motels? They're not yours. They haven't been for months. The debt consumed the equity long before I stepped in. Dylan shook his head. This is insane. Victor's voice cracked. You're ending your father's legacy. No, I said. I'm ending his control. Mom began to cry softly. We just wanted to talk. You wanted money. You never wanted me. The words didn't come from anger, but from clarity. From a place so quiet inside me, it almost frightened me. Dad's voice cracked for the first time in my life. Rose, don't do this. I looked at him, really looked. A man who built a prison from pride. A man who believed love was currency. A man who thought I still needed his approval to breathe. I already did, I said. I gathered my bag and the empty envelope. Ava stepped into the doorway, right on cue, holding backup copies of every document. Her presence alone made the room contract around them. If you have any questions, she said to the table, direct them to our office, preferably in writing. Dad sank back into his chair. Marcus whispered a curse. Dylan stared at the table as if it betrayed him. Mom reached toward me, trembling, but I stepped back. Rose, she whispered, please don't leave like this. I met her eyes. I begged you once, I said, at my wedding. Then I turned and walked out. Voices rose behind me, shouting, scraping chairs, but none of it reached me. The hallway felt brighter, the air lighter, the weight gone. Outside, the night was cool and the sky endless. My phone buzzed. Ava, proud of you. For the first time in years, I believed it. I wasn't losing family. I was reclaiming myself. The next morning, sunlight crossed my kitchen counter, falling on the folder I had tossed there after the dinner. For the first time in years, it didn't look heavy. It looked like release, a boundary I should have drawn long ago. Ava called at 9. Transition cleared, she said. You officially control every asset tied to the motels. Their access ends today. I exhaled slowly. Not triumph, not regret, just freedom. Over the following weeks, transformation began. Contractors toured the buildings, designers walked through with tablets, planning wellness retreats, calm, intentional spaces, the opposite of everything they once were. Each time I stepped inside, the air felt lighter, as if the walls themselves were relieved to be seen by honest eyes. My family never called. Rumors drifted back, Marcus furious, Dad in denial, Mom crying. Dylan posted vague quotes about betrayal, never naming me. And for the first time, their reactions no longer pulled me backwards. They existed and were separate from me. One afternoon, while reviewing final design boards, I caught my reflection in the window. Blazer, hair tied back, expression steady. A woman who no longer hid her success to make others comfortable. A woman who no longer mistook manipulation for love. I realized something then. I hadn't destroyed anything. I simply stopped participating. The retreat would open in spring, a quiet rebirth built on truth, not demand. And I understood that walking away wasn't abandonment. It was protection, not just from them, but for myself. In the end, it wasn't the valuation that changed everything. It was realizing I didn't need a family that remembered me only when they needed saving. Real love doesn't require silence. Loyalty doesn't vanish on your biggest day. Leaving the country club, I didn't lose anything. I reclaimed what they